My name is Fionn MacCool, and I'm the Irish hero. My wrestling journey started when I did my first tryout at the age of 13 years old in MyPW, Malaysia Pro Wrestling. I continued to train in MyPW for another 4 years. After that, I moved to Egypt, where I continued to train for 1 year. Now, I am in the United Kingdom. I am ready to take over the United Kingdom. I've been working on becoming a professional wrestler for 5 years now. Throughout my entire life, pretty much, I've loved professional wrestling. I will not stop. Nothing has stopped me so far. I will continue to do this until I'm told I'm no longer able to do this, and even then I will not stop. I want to reach the loftiest heights in professional wrestling. I want to reach WWE, AEW, NJPW, and I want to hold championships on all of them. You might call them lofty dreams, but I've worked so hard, they're just goals to me right now. If you want to become a professional wrestler just like me and like millions of other people, if you want to become a champion in the WWE, AEW, NJPW, or you just want to learn more about the business that you love, if you want to do some independent shows, if you want to have one match, this is the exact right video for you. Your wrestling journey starts now. The first thing you have to ask when you're a professional wrestler is, do you have what it takes? Most coaches throughout the world will only train people 18 and over. However, it really depends on which country you're doing it in. If you're in the West, then most likely you have to be 18 and over in order to become a professional wrestler. However, if you are in a second world or a third world country, then pretty much it's just up to the coach's discretion. So personally, I started training at 13 years old. I probably wouldn't train people who are 13 years old, but I was able to do it. I'm still here. I still love wrestling. So it's really just down to luck of the draw. So if you're under 18 and you're in a Western country, or you find out that you can't be trained, I suggest is keeping up with it. Just keep watching the shows and everything. The second thing you have to consider this is all before you start wrestling. Are you fit enough? Wrestling is an incredibly physically grueling sport. You might not think it when you first get in the ring, but by the time you do your first bump, you'll know how hard it is. Now, as I said before, you literally just forget everything you've been told about professional wrestling by your parents, teachers, friends, people who aren't in the business or aren't fans of it, because they probably aren't very respectful towards it, because it's a sport that's predetermined. It's like there's not much respect going for it. It's not realistic, but literally bring them into the ring and make them do a bump, then they'll change their mind 100%. Another thing you have to consider is, do you have any other previous injuries that can negatively affect your training, such as back troubles, knee troubles. Also, another thing to consider is age or relative health. Even though there's people on both sides, it's you got Hornswoggle on one side and you got Yokozuna on the other. You got people like me who started at the age of 13. You got people like DDP started at the age of 40 years old. So it's basically it depends on the person. So if you really want it that much, then I'm sure that you'll be fine to begin training at least. Although you do have to ask yourself, how much do you want to become a professional wrestler? Are you willing to sacrifice your time, your money, your body, your mental health, everything? Are you willing to sacrifice that for professional wrestling? I know I was. On the first day of training, my coach said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you willing to dedicate towards becoming a professional wrestler? People would say like 8, 9. I went 10, 10, 10. The Ty Dillinger. Oh. So you do have to dedicate. If you want to be successful, you have to dedicate all your time to it. You have to study tapes. You have to learn to be a good promo, develop your confidence, develop your body. So it does take an incredible amount of commitment. And if you have prior commitments, then it definitely won't halt your training, but it definitely might hinder it. So the second step is to find a good wrestling school. So this is quite easy. All you have to do is just go on Google and search like pro wrestling schools near me. So you just try find one that's like relatively close to your house. I know if you're in America or Britain, this probably won't be a problem. You'll probably have one if you live near a big city or in a big city. But no, I lived in Malaysia. That's where I started training. You only had one. So when I moved from KL to Johor Bahru, which is next to Singapore, I'd have to travel 4 hours there and 4 hours back every 2 weeks in order to continue training. So yeah, when I said it takes an incredible amount of commitment, it's very true. So another thing is you want to make sure that's safe. That's number one thing is safety. So you want to check the reviews, see if there's any like successful good wrestlers that came out of that school. You want to check the coach, have they been properly trained? Pretty much you just want to make sure that you're going to be safe in this, because you get injured in your like first year of training, you're not going to be, the chance of you becoming successful are quite slim, at least a serious injury from not being safe. So you can ask current students and past students about their experiences, and make sure you just do your research on the coach, because the coach is the number one person that will influence your entire career. You have a bad coach, it could destroy your potential as to be a professional wrestler. You have a great one, it'll definitely elevate it. So make sure that you do your due diligence. So the next step to becoming a professional wrestler is to go on a tryout. So with this, you can just check your local professional wrestling school's open days. They should have a tryout day where a bunch of people come in. You might be free, you might pay a small amount to do it, and you'll go in, you'll run around, you might do some rolls, some basic drills, and you might learn a clothesline. I remember I did my first running the ropes on my first day, do about like a ton of push-ups, ton of sit-ups. Me and my friends who recommended me to go to this school, like me and him were both 13 years old in like year 8 of secondary school. And then everyone else is like 30 years old. So everyone else is doing push-ups. They're fine. Now I'm just dying at like 5 push-ups. What you want to do on your tryout days is you want to pay as much attention, and you want to put like 100% commitment into your training. Like even if you can't in the future put 100% dedication, like literally go to failure. If you're going to do 10 push-ups, try to do 11. If you can only run the ropes like twice, and then you feel like you're gonna die, try run it once more. Just try show that you are dedicated and that you will put in all the effort to be a successful wrestler. Because if you don't show your coach that, then your coach will never book you. Your coach will never, ever, ever trust you. Alright, the next step is one of the biggest mistakes that I made. But of course, I'm young. I started young, so I had time to change that. And that is, I never got into working out. Or, I'll correct that. I was never allowed to get into working out. Because like all the gyms, like my local school gym, all the gyms would say, you're not allowed to train until you're like 16 years old. So I was never able to go into the gym and actually train. So that was one of the things that I desperately regret. But I'm young, so I was able to like, by the time I'm like 22 years old, so in around like 4 years, I think I'll be like tip top shape. So I have time to correct that. But if you're starting this at 18, you definitely need to get a gym membership right now. I'm putting some videos out on how to build up your physique, how to start going to the gym, the best exercises for beginners, showing you some like techniques and everything. So stay tuned to that. And I'll tell you why I regret not going to the gym and building up muscle, building up my physique. And it's the fact that when you're skinny, you can only be booked as in a squash match, and you're not doing the squashing, you're being squashed. So basically it affects your booking terribly. Also, when you're extremely skinny, like I was like 40 kg, 45 kg when I started. Like you can't do suplexes, you can't do slams, you can't do any power moves which require lifting up the person. That's like at least half of the moves in professional wrestling were completely off limits to me because I couldn't lift someone up safely without dropping them on their neck. So you don't want to just train for aesthetics. You want to train for strength in order to properly be able to lift someone up safely, because safety is the name of the game at the end of the day. So even though I say that I regret it, I don't really. I could have put more effort into calisthenics than that, but I went through puberty. I grew heights. I bulked last year. I'm planning on doing a big bulk all the way through next year. So I'm set, I think. However, if you start later than me, then yeah, you probably once you finish your height is like set and everything, that you definitely want to go to the gym. So I personally suggest a push-pull legs weightlifting program if you're going to start training like immediately. But I will be pointing out videos if you're more of a beginner and don't actually understand what push and pull means. So the next step is start training and be consistent. Consistency is the name of the game. I know I just said it was safety, but consistency and safety are like the top most important things in wrestling. So once you get through the tryout, you're going to start doing weekly training sessions with a coach where you'll learn basic moves and skills such as running ropes, bumping clotheslines, doing basic suplexes, basic slams, scoop slams, all this stuff. So this is called your boot camp. It's a 6 week to 2 month training program where you learn all the basics of professional wrestling in order to develop that foundation. So at the beginning, even though you may be like extremely excited to try out your favorite wrestler's finisher, or try to dive from the top rope, or do a suicide dive, or anything like that, do not do it. I know in some wrestling promotions, you're not even allowed to enter the ring until you've learned all the basics. You're not allowed to enter the ring. So definitely do not try something. That's the number one way to make your coach pissed at you and want to actually physically attack you, because that's extremely unsafe. And what happens if you die? The school will get shut down. Don't be selfish. Don't do dangerous moves until you're ready. So it is vital that you stick to the basics and you master them first. Remember, a house with a weak foundation will crumble, but then a house with a strong foundation can be built into a skyscraper. So if you want your wrestling career to take off, if you want to do all these moves like moonsaults, 450 splashes, 630 splashes, all of these insane moves, Red Arrow for example, you have to build your foundations first. You have to learn how to bump, learn all these basic moves, and learn them well. Practice them. Like I said, consistency, practice. And after you get that, then you can slowly develop into tougher, more advanced moves. So another thing is that you cannot use motivation. So I'd say don't use motivation to be someone, because motivation runs out extremely quickly. What you want to do is you want to use discipline. So some days you might not want to train wrestling. Some days you might not want to bump. I know I never wanted to bump, but you have to be disciplined at it. You have to do it. Oh, I don't feel like working out, but I'm still going to do it anyway. Plus, that's what you have to do throughout all of life. So this can be a good way to develop discipline very early on in your life. So the next step is quite obvious. Train some more. So I cannot emphasize this. You need to train for years and years and years in order to become an elite performer in professional wrestling. So you need to put in those hours and learn and practice as much as you can. Because you'll never be the best if you can't even do basic moves. 7th step to becoming a professional wrestler: show your performer that you can perform in the ring. Now, it doesn't matter how much of an ego you have. Like, you could think that you're the number one trainee there, but your coach is the number one person in your mind. He is at the front of your mind. He's the only person who's important to you at this time. It doesn't matter about impressing the other boot campers. It doesn't matter about any of this stuff, because your coach is the only person who's going to be booking you. And your coach will not put you in front of a live crowd until they think you are ready. Because it's not only your reputation that's on the line when you go to perform. It's the entire promotions. It's everyone's. All those wrestlers, the coach's reputation on the line. If you break your neck doing something stupid, or because you didn't know how to do it safely, how does that reflect on the coach? It could be entirely your fault, and the coach is still going to get manslaughter charges. I don't think that would happen, but you can't go in there. You can't go in the ring. You can't perform until you're 100% ready to do it. Performing in front of an audience is genuinely an honor for any professional wrestler. To be able to perform and entertain these people who paid their hard-earned money to see you, one of my best days. At least in the professional wrestling business. Actually, anytime you get in front of that crowd, it does feel incredible. The amount of adrenaline, it's a really good feeling. You cannot get it until you go out there and you put everything on the line in front of people who actually paid to see you. Because of this, your coach will judge you incredibly harsh. Because he's not going to risk his reputation because you are not putting in the work. So he's going to look at the amount of commitment you have. So how often are you going to training? He's going to look at your attitude to training. If you're miserable all the time, he's not going to book you. But if you're happy and you're actually engaging in the session, then yeah, he's probably going to book you. It's not guaranteed, but he's more likely to. Your aesthetic, if you're going to the gym, if you're working out, if you're looking better, then yeah, he's probably going to be more imposing in the ring, probably going to be more realistic. So yeah, probably going to book you more. The chance increases. Your appearance, literally everything, down to the smallest detail, will be judged. For example, before my first match, I was a small, skinny 15-year-old boy. Yeah, I went to every single training session and I put all my heart into it. I put 100% effort, whilst others weren't doing that. And so my coach gave me the opportunity to wrestle. As a result of that, I was putting in the effort into training. Now, it was a squash match, but that doesn't matter because the next stage is actually getting booked. So your coach, promoter, or whoever's organizing the event will inform you that you're wrestling on a show. Tell you your opponent, your placement, and some more details on the match. So if it's a championship match or whatever. So, and then one of the final steps is to build your character. So after you find out that you do have a match, you can choose either a heel or a face. So do the crowd hate you or they love you? Are you going to be booed or cheered? Now, mostly, I know I started off as a face and I'm still a face now. So after deciding which one you are, now for me, of course, I was going to be a face. I was a skinny teenager whilst facing an actual grown man. So it was obvious. So your next stage is to choose your character. Now, they will say that your character is your personality turned up to 11. And it's very true. It's you look at John Cena. His real name is actually John Cena. But every day when he's going around, he doesn't go like this. He's not throwing off baseball caps. He's not high-fiving fans. He's not talking about how patriotic he is. So probably the real person It's turned up to 11. However, John Cena is based on more reality, while someone like The Undertaker or Aleister Black, something like that, is based off a more fictional character. So you can choose to be like super realistic, like Zack Sabre Jr., a Will Ospreay, something like that, or a more cartoony guy, like I would even say The Rock or The Undertaker. So, do you want to be Stone Cold Steve Austin or Undertaker? For example, Fionn MacCool, I'm the Irish hero, and I've come to Professional Wrestling to reclaim my family's honor and reclaim the championship gold by defeating all these demons and monsters that have plagued the industry of professional wrestling. The next step in your professional wrestling journey is to get gear. Now, the best way to look professional instantly is to get gear. They always say your first impressions are extremely important, and that is true, especially when it's your appearance in a business like professional wrestling. So your gear should reflect aspects of your character and be extremely unique to you. And for your first match, you don't need to get custom gear that's super expensive. And basically, you just go to a shop and you mix and match stuff that vaguely looks good. I promise you probably will never, ever wear your gear that you wore in your first event ever again. However, once you start getting booked more frequently, it is a good idea to invest into your professional wrestling journey and to buying some proper quality gear that you can bring around and use on all your shows as you generally start wrestling more and start traveling around to different promotions. And now it's time for the thing that you've worked so hard for months or even years. It's time to get into that ring in front of people and have your first official professional wrestling match. Now, it doesn't matter if it's in front of 20 people or 200 people or 2,000 people. Really, it's all the same. It doesn't really change. All it is once you're in that match, all your attention is focused, hyper-focused on your opponent and just going through the match. Like, you kind of forget the audience is even watching you. So, I know if you're watching this and if you've already had your first match, I don't know if it's the same for you, absolutely terrified before it. But like, you just pull behind the curtains and you're there. You're right in the spotlight. There's like 200, 300, 400 people watching you. And then you have to become your character. You have to be this person that like is literally your personality turned up to 110%. Or if you're a fictional character, then it's even worse because it's 100% not like you. And I was absolutely terrified that I would just be stuck there, be frozen, be petrified in fear, not being able to pull the curtain back. But when my music was played, so I'll pull the music back and then auto play just pulled in. Did the entrance. I'm continued to do it still today. So I enjoyed my first match. But something I suggest is use visualization. So practice your entrance. Just think about what you're gonna do. So if you like, I have a quite specific thing. Like go down one knee and then do the raise up and then go on and then just walk the ring and everything. So you could be a Stone Cold. So it's just watching a ton of entrances, getting a couple ideas in your head, maybe write them down. And once you get in the ring, pretty much it just goes along. It's very surreal to be inside that ring, and all your pain is just enough. There's no pain because the adrenaline is so high that you don't feel anything. It's so surreal. Like, you probably won't know this unless you've been in a match, but like all the bumps, the slams, all the moves that will hurt when you're in training, they feel like nothing. Of course, the next day you're gonna like look and like, oh, you're not gonna be able to walk. You'll take off your shirt and like, god damn, how'd I get all these bruises? That's always sign. Like, you always like check yourself and there's like a big bruise there where your back hit the rope awkwardly. Big bruise there from when you got chopped. Everything. The final step is quite loose. It's quite basic, quite generic. Travel around to different promotions and get your name out there. So you might have to contact all these different promoters and just say, "Hi, I'm Fionn MacCool. I'm a professional wrestler. Been training for 5 years since I was 13. This is my character. Here's some of my matches. I've wrestled in Egypt, wrestled in Malaysia for MyPW and PWO. I would suggest watching some YouTube videos. I'm probably going to make some videos on this topic. But right now, that's what I'm doing. So I'm currently reaching out to promoters inside the United Kingdom and hoping to get a match here. I'm definitely going to post it on this channel when I do finally get that match. So it's very generic. I haven't figured this out. I'm at this stage right now. Travel around, get your name out there. Like, it's quite a scary step, because now once you get to this phase where you don't have a home promotion, once you don't have anything, you don't really have any definite thing. You don't have one booker, you have like a whole bunch of bookers. You'd have like 50. It's not scary, but it's quite anxious. One thing I do suggest, if you are a professional wrestler already, is to 100% put all your videos on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. You literally want someone, if they're scrolling through a wrestling feed on Instagram or Twitter, you want to have your match have a chance of popping up on that guy's screen. Because then, who knows who it could be? It could be Triple H seeing who's right for NXT. It's not going to be that, but what you have to do is you literally have to increase your social media following. You have to get your name out there. You have to become like the new young thing. You need to become that. You need to be popular. You need to have this reputation for working hard, for being respectful, for doing all these things, for all these promotions, and then slowly, your name will get out there. So I hope you received a lot of value from this video. I put quite a lot of effort into creating it. This will be the longest video I've ever made so far for any YouTube channel I've ever had. And I put quite a lot of effort into it, so I would definitely appreciate a like and a subscribe. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.